Maddalena.
I mean, I think my mindset, I think Islam can finish him on the ground for sure. And especially it's like we saw it with DDP. If you never felt one of those Dagestani style wrestlers, like you don't want it to be your first time in the cage feeling it.
Yeah.
And Islam and them, they have a different feel. They have a different type of grappling. So for JDM, even in our fight, he makes mistakes on the ground. He does a lot of stuff.
Do you believe he might be able to stop Islam going up to this weight class?
Stop him, yeah. I mean, look, JDM's boxing and pressure that he can do, incredible. So I definitely can get a finish.
All right, favorite team?
Islam's great. Him moving up, I still think he's a nightmare for a lot of the people in the division, but I think JDM can do it.
Experts are buzzing about the upcoming clash between Jack Della Maddalena and Islam Makhachev, and the predictions are getting intense. Some believe JDM's explosive striking could shock the lightweight king, while others say Islam's wrestling and composure will shut that down fast. With both fighters peaking, this matchup has fans and analysts completely divided.
This is all feel. This is one of the few fights where I can't really give you a clear answer. So I just feel like JDM.
Kamaru Usman had a lot to say about this matchup, and it wasn't your usual surface level talk either. Kamaru didn't sound surprised at all when JDM's name came up. He's been watching him for a while and said you can see how much better Jack's gotten in such a short time. The way he said it, you could tell he respects how JDM's putting it all together. Power, timing, patience. He wasn't calling him the favorite, but he made it clear JDM isn't walking in there just to survive.
Jack Della is just the exponential growth that I've seen from this guy lately. That's a tough one for everybody. And he's big and he's dense and he's just that.
He's good, Kamaru. He's good, Kamaru. But explain to me why he's better or why he's going to give Islam a good fight. I just don't see it.
Why?
I want you to really elaborate on why JDM is going to give Islam Makhachev, because you say tough fight, so I'm gonna kind of push your buttons a little bit. How? Where is JDM? Where does he fit? Where does he give, or better yet, where does he give Islam a fit? Striking, grappling, submissions, takedown defense.
He's not sleeping on Islam at all, but he made sure people don't overlook how tough Jack is mentally. He talked about how JDM never folds, no matter how bad it gets. And that kind of mindset can really mess with someone who's used to breaking guys early. Kamaru wasn't predicting an upset, but he wasn't ruling it out either.
I hear exactly what you're saying, and obviously I want Islam to win, but it's not going to be that easy, because one thing, and I think it's one of the, if not the most important thing that we need in this game, in this sport, and it is the belief in himself and the courage to just go out there and execute. This dude, I've watched him in a couple of fights. Spirit was never broken. It was bendy, but it was never broken. And you saw in his last fight when he came out and he looked that much improved, he pieced your boy up.
Kamaru kept it straight. He said Islam's the kind of fighter who doesn't give you space to breathe, and that's what makes him dangerous. He didn't need to hype it up, just said it how it is. For him, Islam's wrestling and control are what separate him from everyone else.
Anywho, with the welterweight with Jack Della, I do think Islam possesses the skills to just make it look easy, get the takedown, take the back, maybe finish, or front headlock, finish. You know, it doesn't matter. So that's a really, really big fight that we're expecting this year.
Ali Abdelaziz didn't try to downplay how dangerous this fight could be. He actually admitted that JDM is no joke, young, hungry, and way better than people think. You could tell he respects what Jack brings to the table, especially the pressure and the speed. He called it a real test for Islam, something that'll force him to stay sharp in every moment. He talked about how Islam's been putting in serious work with Javier Mendez and Khabib, locking in every detail, fixing every gap. Ali said JDM might be the toughest guy in the division right now, but that's exactly what they want. He sees this as one of those moments where Islam proves why he's at the top. He wasn't hyping it up or making excuses, just said flat out that Islam's ready and that on November 15th he expects him to get it done.
Islam's toughest fight today. You know, I'll be lying if I say it's not tough. I think he's very good. He's improved. He's hungry. He's young. He brings a lot of very interesting, task for Islam to handle. And Islam been working really hard with Javier Mendez, with Habib. I've been part of the camp for the last couple of weeks too. But he's closing all the T's, and he's ready, man. He's ready. But GDM, it's a really great fighter, and you can't take anything away from him. We're fighting the best guy in the division right now. I believe he is the best guy in the division. And Islam have a big job on his hand, but I'm very confident November 15, Islam will win.
Jason Mayhem Miller had a pretty balanced take on the whole thing. Seeing Jack Della Maddalena up close, he couldn't help but notice how big and strong the Aussie looked for the division. It's like Jack doesn't even look like a welterweight, more like someone who's just built differently.
Usually, my money is on the guy with the V at the end of his last name. And this might be a little different because we saw, Jack is a big boy, like a hoss, really, for that weight class. I was like, oh my goodness, he looked like a battle toad. Like you just saw such a big man.
Miller noted that Islam, on the other hand, always seems to go through a grind cutting to lightweight, and moving up might actually change things for him. Still, size alone isn't enough to decide this fight, not when skill comes into play. He mentioned that Jack's counter wrestling looked solid in his last bout, but those takedowns were simpler, almost like a test run compared to what Islam's going to bring.
For that weight class, and Kazmat, he looks like he sucks to get down to that weight, so going up, it's going to be like, he'll be a bit smaller, depending upon how he puts the weight and whatever, and if there's been enough time between, but coming down to skill-wise, it looks like the wrestling will be the big factor. Jack had excellent counter wrestling in that last match, but the takedowns were more straightforward. That was like kind of a tune-up.
But Mayhem also made it clear that Jack isn't someone who stands still. He talked about how fighters evolve fast, especially someone like Jack, who's young, driven, and constantly improving. With the right camp and the right training partners, he could walk into this fight looking like a completely new version of himself. Still, Mayhem kept it real. Wrestling might end up being the deciding factor, and conditioning will tell the story once the grind starts.
For this fight. Now, look, the beauty of this sport is Jack can figure out some more details that he didn't have in that last fight, even improve his wrestling by leaps and bounds, depending on who he trains with, and really like be a new fighter by the time he gets there. But likelihood is that the takedowns will become a factor, and then it'll be a conditioning test. Let's see and the methodology of the Russians, I guess you'll call them, is that the grind is completely embraced. Like, that's where they thrive.
Bilal Muhammad didn't hold back when sharing his thoughts on Islam Makhachev versus Jack Della Maddalena. Right off the bat, he made it clear he sees Islam having a real shot at finishing this one, especially once it hits the ground. Bilal's reasoning came from experience. He's trained with Islam before, so he knows exactly how different that Dagestani wrestling pressure feels.
I think my mindset, I think Islam can finish him on the ground. For sure. And especially it's like we saw with DDP. If you never felt one of those Dagestani style wrestlers, like you don't want it to be your first time in the cage feeling it. Yeah. And Islam and them, they have a different feel. They have a different type of grappling. So for JDM, he
brought up how JDM's ground game still has holes, referencing moments from his own fight with him. There were small but costly mistakes Jack made. Once things hit the mat, the kind that someone like Islam would instantly capitalize on. Bilal remembered how late in their fight, Jack's pressure left him open to sweeps and reversals. Those tiny lapses that might not seem like much until you're stuck under someone who doesn't give you a second to breathe.
Our fight, he makes mistakes on the ground. He does a lot of stuff that
when you tossed him
Yeah.
in that 5th round.
Oh, I was screaming.
He was like pressuring into you, and you just hit him with the perfect
feet
throw.
overhead, 5-point move.
Yeah,
literally.
And it was a beautiful, and that's the thing that stuck out to me. Where like that was one of the biggest moments of the fight.
Luke Rockhold didn't overthink it. Rather, he just spoke honestly. He said this fight's tough to predict because both fighters bring something different. He clearly respects them both, calling JDM one of the most exciting guys to watch while praising Islam's strong wrestling base. What caught attention was Luke mentioning how Islam's body might handle the move to welterweight. Having trained with him before, he said Islam looks bigger now, like he's finally filled out that frame. But Luke kept it real. It all depends on how Islam carries that new weight once the fight begins.
Him beating JDM to win that welterweight title?
That's a tough fight. That's a very tough fight. It's going to be interesting. You know, I think those are my 3 favorite fighters in the UFC right now. We go Islam, Topuria, and JDM. JDM's he's fun to watch. So, I mean, that's going to be a great fight. You know, he's no slouch at wrestling, but you have a guy that's wrestled his whole life and grappled his whole life versus JDM, who's kind of like, he's secondary on that, but, you know, you never know. He's a bigger guy. So, you know, we'll see how Islam, how he bulks up and how he looks. He looks a lot bigger than what I remember. I used to train with him forever. So, I mean, he's definitely grown, you know.
Dan Hardy also kept it real from the start. He's always liked JDM's style, especially his sharp boxing, and said he's been a fan of his hands for years. But even with all that praise, he leaned toward Islam this time. He felt like Islam picked the perfect moment to move up. When his body's ready, his power's grown, and staying at lightweight any longer would have just held him back.
Man, I've been high on JDM for a long time. You know, I remember doing interviews back when Ngannou was crossing over to boxing, and people were talking about who's got the best hands in MMA, and I was saying JDM at the time. I mean, his boxing's always impressed me. But at this point, I feel like Islam's moving up a weight class at the right time. You know, there are a lot of fighters that stay in a weight class for too long, and they seem to kind of stifle their physical growth. I don't think Islam can stay healthy and stay in that lightweight division for any longer. And I think right now he's allowed himself to move into a division where his body's just going to grow into it. He's going to be incredibly powerful.
Hardy compared it to when fighters move up and suddenly everything clicks, like they finally fight where they're meant to. That's how he sees Islam now. He's stronger, healthier, and more dangerous than ever. He admitted it might start as an even striking battle, maybe even close on the feet, but he thinks Islam's variety in kicks and ground control will eventually take over.
You know, I've been having the similar kind of conversation in my head with Crawford coming up against Canelo as well, you know what I mean? Like, what's Crawford going to look like going up a weight? And I think his body's ready to do it, same as Islam. And I just think Islam's all-round game is so problematic for any single fighter. I see him taking it. And I can see him probably a 50-50 striking exchange, Makhachev winning with a kicking advantage, but then he's grappling and he's wrestling taking over, probably winning by sub in the championship rounds.
When it came to Craig Jones, he pointed out that Islam's used to a very structured style, the kind where everything follows a set pattern. But with Jack, it's not that simple. His movements, his off balances, even how he breaks grips, they all mess with your timing. Craig made it sound like Islam's biggest challenge won't just be surviving Jack's power, but figuring out how to keep up with the way he scrambles and switches positions.
That's what Belal struggled with. Belal really just sticks to a blueprint. The blueprint obviously works very well, but in terms of creativity in what Belal does, I think it's pretty strict. Jack, as you saw in that fight, some of his off balances and grip breaks and some of the things he does, it's really hard to prepare for that.
Another thing he mentioned was the size factor. He said people might be underestimating how big Jack really is for this matchup and how much that might play into the grappling exchanges.
So I think like Islam, the size difference is going to be quite a lot bigger than people think. And we've seen how Volk did on the ground and how much Islam struggled with him in the grappling exchanges. And having seen Jack and Volks work together, seeing the skill sets, like this is a perfect one. The UFC want guys that stand and bang. I'm trying to still help them out, even though potentially.
Still, Craig wasn't blind to what Islam can do. He admitted there's always that worst case scenario, the one where Islam just mauls you, drags you down, and doesn't let you back up. But even when saying that, he didn't sound convinced it would happen here. The confidence in his tone made it clear he thinks Jack's ready for this kind of fight, both technically and mentally.
So you feel confident about this one?
Yeah, very, very confident for this one.
You think Islam stays at 170 after this, or do you think he goes back down?
I mean, yeah, good question. I don't know what he's weighing. Like, I think he was posting that he was pretty light, so I'm not sure how he's going to deal with that size difference. I think, obviously, worst case scenario, goes out ragdolls, potentially submits Jack. I think he's probably going to stay.
You think Ilya beats him?
Who knows with that guy? That guy surprises me every time, eh?
He's incredible, right?
Everyone's thrown in their predictions, but honestly, no one really knows how this one plays out. Some swear that Islam's control and fight IQ will be too much, while others think JDM's power could change everything in one punch. It's the kind of fight that keeps you talking till the last minute. So, who do you got? Let us know in the comments below.